Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is our first weekly retail data show of the year, which means that it must be a new year. So happy new year. And I hope you had a really, really nice break, or at least just switched off your emails just for a little bit. I did for about 5 minutes, and I feel all the better for it. So what we do on here every week is we look at all the data that we collate from retailers. We track online sales growth and lots of other stuff, and we show you what's going on. This is a bit of a special edition, this one, because we're going to show you a load of the Black Friday stuff that we tracked towards the end of last year. We're going into lots of detail about things. So to show you what we're doing today, it's mostly focused around Black Friday, but there's a little bit of other stuff too. So first of all, we're going to show you our first little bit of Black Friday blast, if you like. And then we get some people on the panel from Avalara, Kineo, Epsilon, Miracle, from an event that we ran just after Black Friday. We had a big discussion about it. So we're going to share some of our insight of what we learned there. And then it's not all Black Friday. I've got some December stuff to show you. I've just got 3 graphs to show you about what happened towards the back end of last year as well. And then we're going to speak to GFS about what happened from an order perspective to get you some of that. And then we'll give you the final Black Friday blast there. So you can ask questions and stuff as we go through. And there's lots and lots of stuff to show you. So first of all, Matthew is going to get us started with a bit of Black Friday stuff. Matthew, Happy New Year to you.
Oh, Happy New Year to you as well, Mr. Mulcahy, and Happy New Year to everybody watching. What we've got for you now is a review about Black Friday. You thought the nightmare had gone, but no, we're going to resurface it. And we're basically going to run through 2 parts today, what actually happened over Black Friday. And a lot went on and a lot of interesting stuff. So let's jump straight into it, and we're going to show you what happened Black Friday last year. So where is this data coming from? Over the period of Black Friday, an 8-day period, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Black Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Cyber Monday, we are collecting data from a little panel of retailers. 120 of them sent us their sales figures every day to say how much money they made, how many orders they got, and the traffic that came through their website. Collectively, it represented about £1 billion in online spend. So it's a pretty good sample and a decent representation of what actually happened last year. And the headline is, it was back in the black, ever so slightly. So here is what actually happened. Running through the center here, we've got the days of the week. Black Friday is there, and then Cyber Monday on the furthest right-hand side. And what we're looking at is year-on-year growth. Was more money or less money spent online than last year? Now, this red line is what happened in 2021. So kind of 12, 13 months ago, everybody was sitting there at their computers, head in hands, going, oh my God, what's going on? It was a bit of a bad Black Friday. But the blue line, that is what actually happened online in retail in the UK last year. For Black Friday, the big day was down 6% year on year. The story is pretty much, it was topsy-turvy. Kind of Monday was up, Tuesday was down, Wednesday was up, Thursday was down. A big point of note is how Sunday did. Sunday was an absolute blinder for many, many retailers. When their figures came through to us, Sunday was a real success for lots and lots of companies, 14% up year on year. Cumulatively, though, across the week, it was plus 0.3%. So that is where back in black comes from. It is a positive number. There's a plus at the beginning of that. So happy days. Last year, in 2021, it was down 10%. So good times for the collective 8 days. But that is every retailer combined. So it doesn't matter whether they were selling home and garden products, clothing, beauty, whatever. That's everyone combined. We're going to do a little tour now to show you very quickly how each individual category did. So this is clothing. Here are a couple of highlights, screen grabs from big companies. This is ASOS. Their Black Friday campaign went live on the 23rd of November. They had a bit of a warm up throughout most of November, but the official one switched on the Wednesday of the big week. This is Joules. They went for an up to 70% off and went live kind of within the first week or so on the 9th. This is M&S, big clothing stuff from those guys. They don't actually participate in any branded Black Friday discounts, but they do other kind of sales. There's not just branded in the same way. Also, River Island, this is a bit of an interesting messaging going on here. It's not a simple kind of 20% off everything. There's kind of a bit of a tiering system. They went live pretty much at the beginning of the Black Friday week. So collectively, how did all the clothing guys do? Same plotted graph here, Monday through to Cyber Monday. Year-on-year revenue was more money earned on that day in comparison to the same day 12 months ago. This is what the clothing guys did. So 2 things to point out. The big day itself for clothing retailers, all combined, was down 9%. So a little bit of a disappointment that they didn't get anything positive or close to zero. And the other main point is the Wednesday. There were several very large retailers who went live on that Wednesday with their sale. And comparatively on an apples for apples basis, they may or may not have had their sale live that time last year. So it wasn't quite an even comparison. Big shoot up of sales for that Wednesday. And we can break it down into some more granular categories there. You can see women's wear in pink and men's wear in blue. Women's wear did actually do better than men's wear across the week. But the standout performer in the world of apparel was footwear. That's the green line that you can see there. That was pretty much the best performing category across the whole week for clothing categories. And accessories, that's things like hats, belts, scarves, gloves. In the yellow at the bottom there, that was the worst performing category. So moving on to the next area, that's home and garden. Here are a couple of screen grabs of some of the big players. Dunelm, huge, great home and garden retailer. In years gone by, they haven't normally participated in Black Friday. They've called it kind of Green Friday or something, but they went whole hog this year and went for the Black Friday branding. They went live pretty much at the beginning of the Black Friday week. Cox & Cox, great retailer for home and garden, pretty much middle of November from those guys. Very, very kind of bold sale there, up to 70% off site-wide. That's quite proud. Screwfix, do not underestimate Screwfix. Do it at your peril. They sell a lot of home and garden stuff. They went live pretty early on in the month of November. And Furniture Village, another one that we've picked out, they also went pretty early on the 7th of November with a straightforward Black Friday sale on their website. So collectively, how did home and garden do? Again, same plotted graph, Monday through to Cyber Monday. This is what the home and garden guys did. Similar performance to clothing when it comes to the actual big day. There was -8% for the home and garden guys. It's actually a relatively flat performance that if you kind of look at the axis on the left-hand side, it's only moving in increments of 5%, going from -10 up to 10. So the waves of up, down across the week, it wasn't significantly up by 10, 20, 30% one day and then down 10, 20, 30% the next. Quite a smooth-ish performance for home and garden. And within the categories that fit within home and garden that we track, furniture was the big winner. Furniture is the one in brown there. It did positive growth on Black Friday, kind of 1 or 0.5% or so. And Saturday, Sunday, Monday, it just flew. It did really, really well post Black Friday. Garden furnishings, on the other hand, that's the one in green, did not do very well, kind of understandably so. Next, move on to health and beauty. Clinique, great big brand. They went live very early on. In fact, many health and beauty retailers did go early in the month of November. That really was kind of the story of the category. Here's another one, the Fragrance Shop. They had gone live with an up to 80% off by the 4th of November. Their boys and girls at Revolution Beauty, they kind of do a Cyber November, a Black Friday November across the whole month. They kind of go pretty hard with an up to 50% off. Boots, arguably the biggest health and beauty player in the whole market, they went live on the 1st of November. And their biggest competitor, Superdrug, they suddenly went live on the 2nd of November. Now, you may smirk, may grin at that, thinking, oh, they've switched their campaign, but I have been reliably informed that Superdrug had planned all along to go live on the 2nd of November. It was not to do with how Boots had actually launched, although it does look quite fun on the outside. So how did they all collectively do? Let's take a little look. This is what the health and beauty section did. Pretty good, actually, on the big day itself, +4%. Year-on-year growth That is, by and large, the highest spend day across the whole year. So well done to the health and beauty guys. Again, a storming Sunday, 22% up year on year for health and beauty. And within some of the more granular categories of hair care, makeup and skincare, the winner was hair care at the top there in the light pink. Really, really strong numbers coming through in the world of hair care. And lastly, we're going to take a little look at electricals and gifts. So here is kind of very.co.uk, very big retailer. They'd gone quite hard with the electrical stuff. You can see down the bottom here, promoting iPhones and watches and laptops. They went live at the beginning of the month. John Lewis, really strong on electricals. Again, if you look down the bottom there, you can see they are pushing things like vacuum cleaners and laundry appliances and TVs and AirPods, all the electrical stuff going hard. And John Lewis went live on the 4th, which is earlier than they normally do. It's kind of about 10, 15 days earlier than you normally see John Lewis go live. Argos, huge electrical sales coming through those guys. They also went live right at the beginning of the month. And air fryers, ladies and gentlemen, who kind of avoided the idea of buying your air fryer for Christmas? The guys at Ninja did very well over their Black Friday sale with that sort of stuff. And the gifting, also mustn't forget the gifting that we're going to show here. Buy a gift. Big sale from those guys, up to 80% off. So how did they do? This is what the charts look like. And electricals was down about 4% year on year on the day, whereas gifts was plus 4% year on year. Altogether, this is what it looks like. So you can compare the main categories that I've just shown you of clothing, electricals, gifts, health and beauty, and home and garden, all into one big graph. The numbers that you want to be looking at is what's just been flashed up on the screen. That is the collective performance of the 8 days from Monday through to Cyber Monday for 2022, all that money in comparison to how much was earned in 2021. And you can see it's quite good. Gifts plus 6.1%, health and beauty plus 3.7%. And it was just home and garden that narrowly missed out on anything kind of positive. And clothing as well, that was down 1.1% too. So moving away from actual revenue performance, something that we thought would be interesting to show you is which hour of the big day itself was the most popular. We asked retailers to send us which hour of the day did they earn the most money during Black Friday this year, and how much, and what time that was for last year as well. And we had 100 retailers tell us the answer, and we're going to plot it on two 24-hour clocks. Now, the darker the color, the more retailers told us that that was their most popular hour. So you can see on the left-hand side here, this is the 2022 chart, that the most popular hour was actually between 8 and 9 p.m. for this year, whereas last year it was between the 10 and 11 slot. Both years have kind of darker colors within the same time frame. It's that late evening, the kind of dinner time, 7, 8 p.m., which is pretty popular, 7, 8, 9. And then just before lunchtime as well. It seems to be the two hot spots, if you will, between the 2 years. But it presents an interesting question. There's a little bit of extra granular detail that we wanted to share with you around this year's performance that's kind of been changed. So what we're going to do is show you those 100 retailers individually on this chart to show you when their most busy hour was this year and their busiest hour last year. So on the left-hand side, you've got the hours of the day from midnight here at the bottom, running up through to midday here, and then late at night at the top. And then we've got 100 vertical lines. I'm going to put 2 dots on each vertical line. The blue dot is the busiest hour that that retailer had this year. And the red dot is the busiest hour that they had last year. So each line is for a retailer. And these are all of those retailers plotted out. So each line will have a red dot and a blue dot, and you can see whether it was busy this year or last year. And it has actually been ordered in a specific way, this graph. It looks a bit of a mess, but it is in a specific sequence. This batch on the left here of retailers, they are all reporting to us that last year their busiest period was kind of late afternoon, between 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 p.m. Whereas this year, the busiest period was kind of mid-morning, 9, 10, 11, 12 p.m. Then you've got this batch in the middle, who really didn't report much of a difference. The gap in time between the red dot and the blue dot for many of these is just 1 hour, 2 hours, for example. This company here, there's just an hour's difference. This company over here, there's just an hour's difference. And even those in the very middle here, the red dot is actually sitting on top of the blue dot. There's no difference. The same hour was the most popular. But it's this jump on the right-hand side, this bunch of retailers that are interesting. These are the ones who this year reported late afternoon as the most popular, whereas last year they had reported it was the morning. So they're the opposite of that first batch. Now, the reason I'm showing you this and the interesting insight that you will get from here is to do with this little green patch here that I've just highlighted, that 7 to kind of 9:30 slot on Black Friday itself. Now, those with a good memory will remember that England were playing the United States in the World Cup on that particular day. During those hours, during the highlighted green bit, that was when England were on telly playing football. Now, what sort of company do you think would have done typically well during lunchtime hours, early morning, last year, but for some reason this year, they did really well whilst the football was on? It is, unfortunately, characteristically and stereotypically so, health and beauty companies. This one here, 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 and this one here are all health and beauty companies. Last year, they did very well during kind of mid-morning, but the typical person that would have been shopping with them in the evening, perhaps, was kind of looking not at the football, but at a website selling health and beauty products. So the football diverted some people's eyeballs towards health and beauty companies. And with that, I will hand back to Andy. We've got a second section of insights coming up. So hopefully you will stay tuned and stay tuned. Yeah.
And stay safe. Yeah, and then a little bit of a cliffhanger here for you, but if November did quite well, if Black Friday did quite well, what did it do to the weeks following that? Find out in a little while. So it's time for get some perspectives from some of our guests on what's happening. So Amy, I think you might have won that little race.
Won the race, but I still have to unmute myself, Andy. Hi. So I'm Amy from Epsilon. I'm sure lots of people have heard from us before, but notice there's quite a few new people on the call as well. So we are market leaders in identity-based marketing solutions, always working towards best possible performance and business outcomes for our clients across channels like email, display, and loyalty.
Magic. Thomas.
Thanks, Andy. Tom Evans, retail lead at Miracle. We are the technology powering the marketplaces of the likes of Superdrug, Decathlon, B&Q, Macy's. In essence, we're technology connecting marketplace sellers to upload their catalogs in a way that suits them, matching their digital maturity. The data is transformed with the Miracle and then surfaced onto the retailer's front end. Once the order is placed, that goes back to Miracle. Seller knows they have to ship the product where and at what times, and we do all the hard work for you.
Well, that's good, isn't it? Angus.
Thanks, Andy. I'm Angus Heyman. I'm strategist at Akeneo. My background, primarily ecom director, where I spent 12 years at Direct Smith in that role. At Akeneo, what we're about is product information systems. So we help you convert your browsers into buyers, and we do that by working with you on a single accurate, enriched record of each of your products, which you can then deploy to each of your touch points, internal, external, sales and marketing.
Great. Olivia.
Hi, Olivia here from Avalara. So I'm one of the tax technology managers, specializing, as my title kind of says, in tax tech, and enables customers to have a fully functioning tax engine in place from the checkout side of things, and allow that kind of automated process of tax determination. So yeah, excited to be on the call.
All right, marvelous. So there's a good spread of experience there. Amy, I'm going to come to you first. So just the background of this little discussion here is following Black Friday, we collate lots of information, we process all that information. Matthew just showed some of that. And we have an event where we get a lot of sort of retail directors together, and we all sit together and discuss the findings and stuff. These four folk were in that very room. So I just wanted to get a view from you as to what you kind of took, what you learned from that, some of the discussions you had, anonymized information, obviously, but some of the things that people were saying and what you took from it. Amy, you kick us off.
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the things that we always do from these events as well, or try to do, is go back and look at how the discussions that we had at the event kind of compare to what we're seeing across the board with our clients. So having done that, I think there's definitely been a group of brands who've done really well on Black Friday, even kind of impressed themselves or outdone what they were expecting, and then a separate group who maybe didn't do quite as well, but it almost was in line with expectations, or they were having some challenges with forecasting because, as we said, it was a very different year following on from two very challenging years. So it was quite difficult to forecast anyway. So whether that drop off in performance for some of those was just an issue with forecasting, there's a level of uncertainty there, I guess. And with everyone, I think, as we've been seeing, the majority of consumers were waiting for that main Black Friday event and through to Saturday, Sunday. That's when we saw the biggest uplift in terms of conversions and definitely in average order value as well. We had some clients whose AOV over that weekend was 3 times what it was the week after. So definitely a huge amount of uplift and waiting. That being said, the same thing that we see every single year remains true. We're really big advocates for our clients messaging and raising awareness as far in advance as possible to when they actually set those offers live. And we continue to see that being super successful. The customers, the consumers that have been messaged earliest tend to convert the most during sales periods and have the highest average order values. One big difference that we've seen and that was being spoken about at the event as well is the type of customer that was converting best. So normally there's a little bit of a preference towards known or loyal customers during Black Friday amongst our clients, but this year that shift was much greater. So the number of brands that were able to bring in new customers during that sales period was much lower. It tended to be people who were already aware of the brand, purchased previously, that knew what they wanted and were going through to site to make a purchase with a brand they know and trust. Anyone that was new, just kind of finish up on how to make that new customer thing successful. The real highlight for some of our brands was new customers coming through who had a good and positive experience during Black Friday. A lot of them then came back or already have come back during Boxing Day and early January sales. So positive to end on there is that if it's gone well, if they had a good experience, good delivery, were happy with the product, a lot of those new customers very quickly returned during the Boxing Day sale period as well.
Okay, so that's a positive and classic retail thing, you know. So that's retail done well, isn't it? We did something
good
good, and then
experience.
they come back. That's good. Okay, there's a few things I'll pick up on then in a bit. Thomas, same point for you.
Yeah, I think following up on Amy's point on the forecasting piece, a lot of the conversations we were having, and I think air fryers is probably the hot topic of Black Friday this year. Speaking to a number of retailers at the event, yes, it's great to have those air fryers available, but what happens when you sell out? How do you manage to keep that customer? And it's really highlighting the inflexibility in some of the supply chains here, and how can you adapt quickly to respond to those customer trends? I think that's really been emphasized with the extended Black Friday sales we've seen this month. Having that ability and flexibility to adapt to these consumer trends and backfill products, backfill out of stocks, and ensure you can keep that customer is something that came up quite a lot during our conversations during the day. I think also following on from that and the new customer acquisition piece as well, Mountain Warehouse, one of our customers, their top selling products on the Sunday as you highlighted, was a very important day, Andy, was ski goggles, which is a category that they never played in before launching a marketplace. So being able to adapt and respond to these consumer trends was something that gave them a really successful Sunday throughout that marketplace season.
And might have sold all those ski goggles, but there's no snow because it's been really warm in Europe. But never mind, they didn't know that at the time. Angus, how about you?
Yeah, the conversations that I was having on the day were that Black Friday was a response to, or the plans for Black Friday response to uncertain times. The comparables year on year were tricky. The cost of living and the challenges were largely tactical. You had to be seen to be involved. You had to create what was appeared to be a compelling price, and then you had to manage your margin. Hence, juggling period versus depth of range versus depth of discount. But fundamentally, as we've seen from Matthew's comments, the outcome of that was largely neutral from a revenue perspective. Therefore, the conversation that we got into was more about the fundamentals. Black Friday is a kind of short tactical period, important to trading, but year round, the fundamentals of being where customers are, grabbing their attention once you've got them on your site or your product page, and then overlaying how you want to create those baskets, how you want to create the add-ons and demonstrate premium price is the key issue to resolve, particularly at a time when sales can be much harder to come by in a tricky economic situation. And therefore, obviously from our background, we were talking about product experience and good and bad. I presented some examples of what bad looked like and what good looked like, and bad was invariably, from examples taken on Black Friday weekend, was hygiene stuff, which is going to undermine your conversion for that product, but seen together with other products on your site is going to undermine trust and sort of your wider brand and your sales. And it was the simplest stuff of HTML markup appearing in product titles, titles of products that were loaded with keywords that didn't make any sense, and then even just stuff that was largely gibberish because it'd been cut and pasted from so many different locations with character limits that the entire sentences were just stopping halfway through. So avoiding those hygiene issues, getting the product presented in the right way enables you to probably still participate in Black Friday, because Black Friday you're going to have to, you're not going to want to be seen to be stepping out of it, but you're going to want a message at that time of year. But if you can get those fundamentals right, then year round, you've got a stronger base, and you can hopefully make a case for a lower discount, or in some cases a price premium, and a margin opportunity, like I say, at times when economy is in a really tough place.
Yeah, and I think having that sort of spurious stuff in your feed also kind of makes it look like a bogus website, doesn't it? So it's a proper sort of conversion killer if you're not careful. Olivia, let's bring you in.
Hiya. Yeah, I think from our side of things, and based on recent conversations, particularly with customers, it was a lot more difficult to forecast, and we've touched on that. But I think actually what that gave a lot of companies the opportunity to do was be slightly more strategic about their approach. You know, suddenly your remaining customers and your valued customers were incredibly important, and the journey at which they were going through was really important. I think in the past, you know, Black Friday has almost always been this boom time, and it's been really successful, and everybody's, you know, gone all guns are blazing into it for new business, and possibly forgotten that actually, you know, that customer retention and that reoccurring customer base is absolutely crucial. We did find with a number of our customers this year that there was definitely a more strategic approach on how can we make their experience better. You know, everybody, Amy, Thomas and Angus have touched on the side of things of retaining your customers, ensuring that there's a good positive customer experience. And, you know, the easiest way for that to happen is for them to have a smooth journey through, whether it's checkout or the marketing side of things, but actually being delivered with messages that are accurate, that are presented well, being delivered with products or services that can be fulfilled, rather than there being delays, or rather than being complications or extra costs that they're unaware of. And we really saw an increase based on the conversations we've had. And I was chatting to a customer the other day who said, Yeah, we've had, you know, a steady increase in new business, but the majority of their Black Friday success was based on their existing customers. And Amy touched on the average order value. And again, those higher average order values were existing customers waiting to make a purchase and being enticed to do that and being, you know, rewarded for doing that as well. There were some really interesting strategies out there. So I think that was a real kind of common feeling that I got from conversations that were being had, that people were more strategic. Possibly the last 2 years, I mean, it's been incredibly difficult, but we have seen a lot of companies take what's been a very strange time. They've taken that time to try and finesse some of their processes, which means some of the things that they may have struggled with before. You know, if I was having this conversation the same time, let's say 2 or 3 years ago, probably be quite different actually, because then we're just talking about processes breaking, things going wrong. I think a lot of companies have taken the time to try and focus on what that customer journey looks like. And whether that's from enhancing the technology side of things, enhancing your fulfillment, your delivery, enhancing your marketing, you know, Angus touched on it with the dodgy links, you know, making sure that there's none of those. I think from our experience, people have actually put a little bit more effort into that because it was unsure. It was an unsure time. You know, off the back of that, we've seen a slightly increased, as I would say, increased exposure. So we have also seen companies who are still playing catch up. For example, you know, they've made lots of sales and suddenly have a historical, I don't know, tax compliance project, but they're being alerted to it a lot quicker, the same as, you know, they will be on the marketing side and the product delivery side. People are wanting or seemingly wanting to make that change quite quickly.
Okay, just some open questions here. I'm just interested in the Sunday thing, right? So, you know, we saw a big spike, Amy, you said, sort of big baskets and things like that. Why is my question. I have a theory, but would anyone care to chuck in thoughts first?
I think from what we've seen, a lot of it, as you said, it's your loyal customers, people who know your brand. They're checking the site. They've visited the site. We can see that they visited the site. They've looked at the products, and based on previous experience, they've decided best to hold out and you'll most likely get the best deal.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'd agree with Amy. Oh, sorry, Angus. I think there was a holdout. I think the loyal customers were being kind of tempted with little offers along the way. There was various different campaigns going to them and they were waiting for the best one and to take that kind of that decision time.
Yeah, and I think in association with that is that the Sunday night, Monday ecom peak of that's when people have sat down and placed those orders, but also with the role of physical stores, physical store trip Saturday, check your pricing online in store, and then make your decision on Sunday.
Yeah, more time to do comparisons. And I think consumers are pretty smart to marketing now, right? They'll go on the website, they'll put it in their basket, they'll check their emails, see if they can get a bit more of a discount. All of that takes time. If you include then, like you're saying, Angus, a visit to the store, that's going to take you all the way through to Sunday, Monday, isn't it?
Yeah, that price comparison piece is a massive one. So one of our recent surveys, our consumer survey report, 62% of people like to buy on marketplaces, and price is that determining factor, because you have that competitiveness and that you have that competitive nature available to you on one site. It's definitely something that consumers are looking for, especially through these unprecedented times we're going through.
So I think probably all that makes sense. I wonder with this particular Sunday whether there's people have an idea. Well, people have no idea when Black Friday starts, right? So, you know, we all say, oh, it's Black Friday sale now, and it could be the 1st of November, which is a Tuesday, and it's called Black Friday. So you've no idea when it starts, but you do kind of know when it ends, which is the back end of that sort of big week. So I wonder if that Sunday is like, I better, you know, probably run out of time here for these discounts. If I don't do it now, I might actually sort of lose out. I wonder if there's a little bit of that going on, even though when you think about it, you can't just carry on getting discounts anyway. Right, we have to move on. Thanks very much for your input there. We're going to get into a bit of December stuff now. So I'm not showing you oodles of things here. We only got the data in a little while ago. but I've got 3 graphs to show you. So next week on our webinar, we're going to go into a full analysis of December and indeed 2022 as a whole. But I'm just going to show you 3 things here. Rude too. So how did December do? Bearing in mind November was just slightly positive as a month, just dipped into positive territory there, completely out of kilter with what the rest of the year did. So what does that mean for December? Well, I did kind of think that maybe you're sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul a little bit there. And it does seem to have been the case. So there was a very big drop away there. So 12% decline, which is the biggest drop since March of this year. So a really, really big decline there. But there's a bunch of other stuff that's going on there. So if we show you this by week, then you see something slightly different appear. So this is showing you the 5 weeks following Black Friday week. So the first one is week commencing the 27th of November in our index classification, and then the 4 weeks of December. And if you look at the orange line, that is 2022. Okay, so it's all negative. The zero baseline, 0% baseline is at the top there. It's all kind of negative. And some of the it tends to be sort of 5 to 10% down in terms of revenue. So you think, well, maybe that's not too bad if you look at kind of the rest of the year. But actually, when you look at the blue line, which is 2021, some of those are building on some very, very big declines from last year. So if you look at that week following Black Friday week good, week following it was up against 34% decline from last year, and it couldn't get any growth, right? So that tells you that it kind of it was sort of artificially inflated by the fact that we pulled some volume forward, and then that week was a bit of a horror show, really. And then the next 2 weeks were okay, but the 18th of December, so bearing in mind all the noise about the strikes and everything, just general sort of bad news about getting things delivered, last order dates getting pulled forward and things like that. That week you'd think would have done quite bad, but it looks like it's all right, but it's not, because it was against 23% down from last year, right? So it should have been able to get better than that. So that week, not very good. But I think the one that probably did all right was the week commencing the 11th, where it's, the line is kind of where it should be. Probably those sort of late shoppers thought, you know what, I'll probably better press the button now, to be fair. I don't normally bother until the 20th or the 21st or whatever, but I think they probably pulled it forward. So you've got a little bit of moving around. So this is a proper hindsight moment for me, where there's all this stuff that you're kind of forecasting and thinking might happen. And then you get the numbers and you say, aha, that's what happened. It's always better after the event, I think. And just show you a couple of categories from December. So this is how December looks. So it was a bit of a horror show, truth be told, for revenue. So total market is the red one in the middle there. Quite a lot of categories saw pretty decent decline. Even clothing was down. So clothing, which has done all right for the year, actually has had a couple of months now where it's been a bit more wobbly. And we can show you the whole year to date, the full year performance for those next week. But there's just a couple of subcategories did positive. Everything else was a bit negative, really. So there's a little blast of December. So next week on our webinar, we'll show you the full analysis, but we're going to have a slightly different perspective now, Bobby from GFS, because they know a lot about the delivery volumes and stuff. So we can get a view from Bobby. Bobby, introduce yourself first.
Hello, Andy. Happy New Year. Like you said, I'm Bobby Toulis, Group Marketing Director from GFS, Global Freight Solutions. We're the industry's largest provider of managed multi-carrier services. So we're here to sort of share some insights around what happened with delivery and parcel volumes over Black Friday period, but also rest of peak. So parcel volumes, carrier performance, not revenue.
Okay, so yeah, you give us that side of the fence. So we just talked all about revenue. You should tell us what happened with Black Friday, what you saw.
I have to refer to some of the data I've got here. So I think that, in terms of parcel volumes, like you said, we saw higher parcel volumes in the week before Black Friday week started. So week commencing the 14th of November, like you said, I think some of the spend was pulled forward. So we saw parcel volumes go, much higher that week compared with the same week previous year. Then we saw parcel volumes continue to sort of increase week on week. So the week after that, week commencing 21st of November, as we went into Black Friday week, we saw those volumes increase again by 20%. So week before, week commencing the 14th of November, was our highest week in terms of parcel volumes up to that point this year. Then the week after, we saw those volumes increase by a further 20%. You know, we were hitting well into the six figures. So that was Black Friday week. And then, you know, that stayed strong all the way through to Cyber Monday. Yes, our highest number was Cyber Monday, Monday, 28th of November, which is in line with your revenue figures. But interestingly, we hit the same peak again on Monday, the 19th of December. So I think that's when we saw the last minute, purchases and deliveries going through. So that was, yeah.
Possibly delivery volumes falling in from the previous week though. So that's like the last order date thing, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Because the cutoffs. Now, hand in hand with that, if we look at what was happening with carriers and delivery performance, across the networks, and obviously carriers, retailers, we were already bracing ourselves for a really tough week because Royal Mail had already pre-announced all the strike dates. So we'd already had contingency plans in place for all of our retailer customers. There were some retailers that were caught out because they weren't able to put those plan Bs in place. But at that point, the carriers, that were taking the extra load had already put in strict measures to lock down capacity because their job and everybody's job at that point is just to protect delivery for the customers they've got.
So it's a major spanner in the work in that thing, isn't it? So, I mean, what sort of impact did you see? Because there was a lot of sort of media attention
around Royal Mail.
I got a lot of phone calls from journalists saying, it's all going to fall over, Andy, isn't it? Because they love that.
They love it, yeah. They love a bit of it's not the first time we've had a Royal Mail strike, okay? But you just don't want it during Black Friday, and of course it continued all the way through the rest of peak trading. So, like I mentioned before, your question is what was the impact? So yes, we saw some retailers who hadn't prepared in advance. They were caught out, finding it very difficult to find someone else to take their parcels. We were working proactively with all our retailer customers, so we'd already put plans in place. Obviously, what we were looking to do is having to shift, although volumes stayed where we were expecting them to be in terms of forecast. Because of the Royal Mail strikes, we were shifting that volume across different carriers. That put a lot of pressure on the networks because suddenly there was a huge volume that should have gone through Royal Mail. Their networks are shut. So that volume has then got to go through, other carrier networks. So that was really tough. Overall, the carriers did really well to sort of protect delivery performance. I think once the snow hit as well, then there was the double whammy of higher than expected volumes going through the network, disruptions because of bad weather, even traffic accidents in certain parts of the country. That tipped a lot of the depots into special measures, which means in our language that you've got parcels stuck in depots, not being able to be cleared or transported on that final mile. So that created backlogs. And of course, those backlogs are then having to be through as well as new parcels coming through. So there was a lot of disruption caused by Royal Mail. And I think everything, truth be told, I think everybody the industry did really well to sort of deal with it. I think everybody's back on their feet again. All the backlogs are cleared. Everything's back to normal.
Okay, I mean that's what I was going to say, really. So we knew all that disruption was happening. You always get a bit of disruption this time of year. This year is pretty profound, but we haven't ended up going into January where it's like, God, we're in such a mess because of that.
No, I think also because we didn't see that final, I think because Black Friday, the spending came early, right? So there was it started early. We didn't have that late last minute spike in sales in the last week of December, which meant by the time we got to the last week, volume started softening around about the 22nd of December, sorry. Normally we'll see that continue right up to Christmas Eve. So that gave us the space, the window to clear everything out and get back on our feet again.
Yeah, because in a way, Black Friday used to be this thing that was a day and then it was a weekend.
Yeah.
Really concentrated, very difficult. The fact that it is spread out a bit has actually, as much as the headaches it causes in other ways, it does help a little bit with easing through some volume, doesn't it?
Definitely. And there's other levers which retailers, will pull on the delivery side just to sort of manage, protect delivery and manage performance, such as, maybe slow down orders coming into the warehouse by just switching off next day delivery, for example, and only offering 2 to 3 day delivery, so that the warehouse has got a bigger turnaround, a bigger window for turning orders around. So overall, the Royal Mail impact was, like you said, a spanner in the works. But the good thing is that when you're informed, you've got time to sort of try and manage that. And then on top of that, of course, and this is just standard practice during peak, there's always going to be fluctuations according to forecasts. So every retailer will start peak with their forecast plan. And based on that, they know what delivery capacity they need, what collection times they need, and we manage and plan that with them months in advance. But then you go into peak and there's always going to be changes and surprises. And at that point, that's when you're working really closely with your delivery partner. Every day you're on the phone checking how are the volumes looking today, has anything changed, so that can then be managed with the back-end carriers.
Okay. Bobby, thanks a lot. It's time for our second instalment of Black Friday-ness. Just before Matthew does that, there was a question about Cyber Monday and whether it's still a big deal. Someone asked. So the interesting thing with it is if we look at the share of spend across those 8 days, it's remarkably sort of static year after year. So it moves around like a little bit, but then it kind of goes back to where it was. So yes, it is still a thing in relation to the other days, relative to the other days. Matthew, it's time for our second boss.
Hello, welcome back. I will share my screen and crack on with part 2 of our Black Friday Insights straight away. So outside of the data that was being collected by retailers submitting their website sales figures, IMRG are also over the Black Friday period doing lots of gathering of kind of information around when retailers are starting their campaigns. So every day throughout the month of November, we have a list of 300 retailers, and we are going onto their websites every day and looking to see what their promotional activity is, to see whether they have a Black Friday sale on. And this is what we were looking for. Here's a screen grab example from Go Outdoors. We would mark down to say, yep, that is a Black Friday sale, big tick, and it would go in the little box. Every day that happened across 300 retailers. Here's another example, Matalan. This is a screen grab from their website. At some point across November, they quite clearly had a Black Friday sale. And that is what we were looking for. Big and splashy across the homepage that says, yes, very clearly that retailer has a Black Friday branded sale on their website. Now, we can then plot that across the month of November to see how many out of our panel of 310 actually started and continued with their campaigns across the month of November. And we've done that for the same set of 310 retailers in 2022, and we did it for 2021. So what you've got along the bottom here are the days throughout November. So if you start over on the right-hand side of Black Friday here, you've then got 1 week away from Black Friday, 2 weeks away from Black Friday, 3 weeks away from Black Friday. The reason we do it like that instead of actually the raw date within November is because Black Friday moves around a little bit. This way, we've actually got the distance away from Black Friday that companies started their campaigns. On the left-hand side, we've got the number of retailers in our panel that were live with the Black Friday sale, just like you saw for Matalan and Go Outdoors there. Out of 310, this is what it looked like in 2021. So 3 weeks out, you've got 25, 30 retailers live with their campaigns. By the time you get to the Monday of the Black Friday week here, that is when you see the biggest incremental jump up here. That's the biggest jump. You've got just over half of all the retailers in our sample live with a campaign. And by the time you get to the big day itself, you've got about 240 out of the 310 with a Black Friday branded sale on their website. Fast forward to 2022, and this is what it looked like. So you've got a lot of retailers last year, they started earlier with their campaigns in the month of November. look particularly around the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 2 weeks away from Black Friday, these little bits here. Big chunk of extra companies decided to start their campaigns earlier. By the time you get to the week itself, again, you've got more retailers starting earlier. The blue line is higher than the red. And come the big day itself, you've got about 5 extra retailers who decided to throw their hat in the ring. But here's the thing. This is a screen grab from the White Company. Great retailer. This is what their website looked like on Black Friday itself last year. They have branded it as a white weekend. Not Black Friday, but a white weekend. Or here's another example. Beauty Bay. Towards the beginning of the month, they had a big flashy sale on their site, up to 40% off. Christmas has come early, but it wasn't branded as Black Friday. So when we were going through our little spreadsheet and ticking it off, that would not have got the tick. It wouldn't have counted as anything because it was not Black Friday branded. However, if we go back to our little chart and we include things like the example of the White Company or like the example of Beauty Bay, who quite clearly have a big promotional event on, but it might not just be branded as Black Friday. This is what the month looked like. You've got pretty much half of the whole sample live with some big flashy campaign for nearly all of November. Take a little look over here. By the time you got to the Thursday and Friday, 3 weeks out, nearly half of the sample are going with a big campaign. And if you want the numbers, here are the interesting takeaways. So out of those 310, there were 218 who participated in Black Friday campaign this year and last year. So we can get some interesting movement statistics off the back of that. And we can tell you that 55% of retailers decided to start their campaign earlier in 2022 than they had the previous year. The average increase, the extension of that campaign on average was 7 days, a full week of extra Black Friday campaign. 20% of retailers, 1 in 5, didn't change their launch date last year. They stuck to the guns and went with it, which leaves you with 25% of retailers, 1 in 4, actually started later. They shortened the length of their Black Friday campaign and they reduced it by 6 days. Now that actually presents quite an interesting opportunity. The fact that 55% of retailers decided to start their campaign longer this year allows us to kind of go for some conclusions and try and dig out and find an answer to what actually happens to those retailers who start their campaign longer. So we're going to plot it out for you. And there's a lot of dots on this graph that we're about to show. It does get a little bit messy, but the conclusions are pretty interesting. So what we've got along the left-hand side is the month of November. We're starting 4 weeks away, and then we've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then a Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, leading all the way up to Black Friday at the top here. We've then got 218 vertical lines. You can see lots of little gray slices there. We are going to show you on each vertical line 2 dots. One red one to show the date in November that a retailer started last year, and a blue dot to show you when a retailer started the year before. So each vertical line is 1 retailer from our sample. These red dots that you're about to see spread across the line are 218 retailers' start dates within 2021. So you can see loads of companies started their campaign on Black Friday. Quite a lot of retailers started their campaign on the Monday. Again, as I said earlier, that is the most popular day for retailers to switch on their campaign. All the way down to here, where you can see a bunch of retailers. This lot here actually started their campaign on the Monday, pretty much 4 weeks away from Black Friday. Now let's add in the blue dots. This is to show you when each of those retailers started their campaign for last year, 2022. So just as an example, this is showing you this particular retailer here. This little red dot tells you that in 2021, they started on the Monday of the Black Friday week. But 1 year later, they decided, actually, you know what, we're going to start on the Tuesday. So the interesting bit on this graph, the bit that you want to pay attention to, is what is being drawn inside this black little dotted box. These are the retailers who decided to start their campaigns at least 5 days earlier in 2022 in comparison to the year before, an extra 5 days. We've deemed that long enough to make a significant impact on the bottom line of a company. 5 days is a good amount of time. Anybody who did 5 days or more of their campaign length last year is in that box. So what we went and did was looked at each of those retailers and looked at to see what their revenue performance did. And we were looking for two things. What happens to the spread of revenue that each of those retailers earns? I.e., do they earn money distributed evenly throughout the month of November? Is it all pulled forward because they started their campaign earlier, or does it actually remain the same? And secondly, how much money did they actually earn? Did it make them more cash throughout the entire month of November? Let's take a look. So the first thing is the spread of revenue. We averaged out how much money each retailer made percentage-wise in week 1, 2, 3, and 4 during November. For all of those retailers in that box, this is what their spread of revenue looks like across the month of November in 2021. So you can see week 4 over here. That's the month where you get where you earn the most money because it's got Black Friday in it. And then there's a fairly even spread across weeks 1, 2, and 3. Now, for the same retailers, what does that spread look like for 2022? Do you think it was pulled forward? So week 1, 2, and 3 would have earned more or less? This is the result. And it's not massive. It really is not massive. It's a couple of percentage points. A little bit less was earned in week 4. But again, look at the differences. We're talking about 1 or 2% here. It really is not a massive change. Consumers are quite irritating, really. You can start your campaign all the way back in week 1. You can extend it by a week, 2 weeks, but they hold back. They keep their money and they wait until week 4. They wait till Black Friday to actually go and spend it. So the next conclusion was, do they make more money? Is there more money to be earned by starting your campaign earlier? And what we did was we looked at the overall revenue that each retailer made across the whole month of November for this year and compared it to the year before, year-on-year growth. So that is what is down the center here. This is year-on-year growth. Was it less money than last year or was it more money than last year? And then we've got the number of days that they changed their Black Friday campaign. So we will place a bunch of dots on this graph for a corresponding like coordinates, if you will. If a retailer had 5 days more on their campaign and they earned 20% more, their little dot would go here. So of all the data that we had, these are the retailers that we can show you the answers for. This is where they land. So for example, this is telling you this particular retailer here, they had a 5-day reduction in the number of days of their Black Friday campaign, but they actually managed to earn over 30% more cash this year than last. Now, the interesting bit and the takeaway that you want to look at is that red box there. These are the interesting ones. These are companies that actually extended the length of their Black Friday campaign by 5, 10, nearly 15 days, and yet they earned less money, in some cases significantly less money this year than they did in the year before. The guys that are laughing are these ones over here in the little red box. They did really well. They actually reduced their campaign and managed to earn more money. So really the conclusion is starting your Black Friday campaign earlier in the month is no guarantee that you're going to earn more money. Actually, you can't really determine it because the customers, they wait until you get to Black Friday, and starting early really doesn't guarantee that they're actually going to come and spend more money with you anyway. So that is the end of the presentation. Hopefully that was useful for you guys to see. What we're going to do now is just a quick promotion of next week's webinar. I would encourage you to tune in. Next week, we're going to have a full review of December. Andy showed you a couple of slides a second ago as to a little teaser as to how December went. Tune in same time next week to get the full dive into what's going to happen or what happened over the month of December. And I think just in the chat there, we've put a little link for where you can go and register for that webinar. But other than that, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully that was interesting for you all to see a little deep dive into the world of Black Friday. There's loads more stuff that IMRG have got. I'm sure over the coming weeks, we will be showing you even more insights as to how Black Friday went. But thank you very much for watching and Happy New Year to you all. Goodbye.